Welcome to the Outliers Journey, where we'll explore the human stories of inspiring paths to success in the African American and Caribbean immigrant communities. My name is John Seaton, and I've always been fascinated with folks who manage to overcome adversity and somehow achieve success despite the odds. With these stories, I hope to enlighten and inspire others, especially those listening that may find themselves in a similar circumstance. So let's get started. The podcast today is all about opportunities and challenging the conventional wisdom of how someone should be evaluated for a professional position. Here's a few facts for you. 76% of Black adults in America do not have a college degree. 79% of families sustaining jobs require a 4-year degree. There's a $143,000 average difference in family net worth between white and Black families. And there's an estimated 4 million jobs today that can be recredentialed to remove the requirement for a college degree. So this begs the question, how do we address these inequalities? Is a 4-year degree really required? Does world experience count? How do we better match skills or the ability of someone to do a job versus just looking at credentials based on a 4-year college degree? How can we improve access to professional jobs for those in the minority community? How do we close that opportunity gap? So these are all questions we will explore through the life story of our guest today, where she went from a career in fashion to a career in tech as a project manager at Cisco. So today I'm happy to welcome Bryanna Morris to the podcast. We'll explore her journey, which began in Willingboro, New Jersey. Bryanna, who was heavily influenced by her grandfather, a retired Air Force veteran who she loved very much. When he got sick, her academic career suffered as a result, sending her on a path that prevented her from achieving a 4-year college degree. What we want to explore in this podcast is how that lack of a 4-year degree impacted her professional journey and how the organization 110.org improved her opportunities and changed her life at a very critical time, I might add. So with that, Bryanna, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, and your current situation?
Sure thing. So, as you mentioned, I was born in Willingboro, New Jersey. I currently reside there now. I was in Brooklyn for about 5 years. And then when I got pregnant with my daughter, we moved back to be closer to my family.
Tell me why you wanted to tell your story.
Well, just like you, I think that having stories of people who did not have the normal quote unquote trajectory into tech or into the corporate world, I think is so good, because had I known about this or the program that I was a part of sooner, it would have had a major difference on the trajectory of my life. I'm glad that I found out about it when I did, but you always think like, oh, if I would have known about this 5 years sooner, or 10 years sooner, where would I be? So if my story can help inspire or just bring awareness to 110 or other programs like it, then I feel like it's my responsibility to make it known.
I appreciate that. So one question I always ask my guests is, how do you define success?
Well, I'm very family oriented. I am married. I have a daughter. I'm very close with my mother, my grandmother. And I think that a major part of my personality is like, when you love me, I love you. So I'm very loyal to the people in my life. And I feel like if you have strong familial connections, strong friendship connections, you have a village. I think that is really success. Obviously, being able to sustain your family financially also, but really having a network of people that you can lean on, whether it be professionally, personally. I think that is really what I define success as. And if we're going to define it as that, then I find myself to be very successful, because I have really, my village is my everything, and I really have a good one.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the family, the village. But as we talked about at the top of this show, there's a wealth gap, right? And
Absolutely.
not having a 4-year college degree sometimes prevents us from achieving, I'll say, the commercial level of success, right? There's the familial
Absolutely.
level of success. But I want to start a little bit earlier. So you said you were born in Willingboro, and one of your big influences was your grandfather. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I love talking about him. So my grandfather was Roland Harris, and he was born in Red Bank, New Jersey. So my grandfather was very much an intellectual. I'll put it that way. He read everything. I mentioned to you when we talked before that he was very big on looking at both sides of the spectrum. So when he was growing up, there were black newspapers and white newspapers. And people would always ask him, well, why are you reading the white newspapers when you can read the black
Mm-hmm.
newspapers? And he always said, I read both because you can't really make intelligent moves if you don't know what the other side is doing. Um, so that was really his thing. And he used to listen to talk radio all the time. That have opposing positions to what he really believed in. But again, he said you have to know what the other side is doing if you're going to make smart moves. So he married my grandmother back in the 50s, and they had my mom and my aunt. And he was just a really big influence on me. He was very big on reading. He was very big on Black excellence, getting an education. And yeah, he was just basically my biggest influence. I love that man to death. He taught me a lot. I could read by the time I was 3. So he taught me how to read. He helped me with my homework. We would watch TV together. He was a big historian. So we would watch the History Channel together. And I think that's where my love of history came from. And he was a great man. I really do miss him.
So it sounds like you grew up in a great family with a lot of support that
I
valued
did.
education, right? And
I
so
did.
what's confusing, maybe to some, is that, well, Bryanna, how come you couldn't get a 4-year degree then if you had all that going for you, if you had a family that valued education? What happened?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that I couldn't. So I started at a local community college with the goal to transfer to a 4-year university. But in my second year, my grandfather got sick, and I decided to stop going to school and get a job and kind of just take a break. There was a lot going on. It wasn't that him being sick prevented me from going to school, but it was really just the mental load of him being sick and then school. And I felt the financial burden because I was always a real independent kid. And I was like, I want my own money. I was somebody who had a job. The moment I turned 15 and could get a job, I had a job. So I was just, I think, just in the mindset of let me take a year or two off, make sure Pop Pop's okay,
Yeah.
make some money, and then I'll go back. And what ended up happening was I ended up getting a job at Nordstrom,
Hmm.
and they are really big on hiring from the inside and building you up. And I always had a love of fashion. I loved getting dressed up, but it really taught me like the other side of the business. And I realized that a 4-year degree wasn't necessarily required to be able to build a career in fashion.
Hmm.
It really was about, natural talent and more so who you know.
Right.
And one of my, I guess, biggest traits is that I'm a people person. So networking always came really easy to me. So I was able to network my way, out of Nordstrom into Rent the Runway. I was there for a long time. I ended up being a visual merchandiser over at their flagship store. And I really, really enjoyed it.
You told me a story about going to work in your PJs. Tell me about
Yes.
that.
So Rent the Runway, at the store, we had access to all the clothing and we had access to a complimentary unlimited membership. So I never really had to think about what I was wearing during the day. I would go to work. We would open around like 7:30, 8 o'clock. I'd be there, and everybody would come in their sweats or their PJs. And then we would all get dressed at work because we had access to all these clothes and we could swap them in and out, and they were constantly being cleaned and changed out. So I would go to work and be like, go in the back in the stock room, like, what am I going to wear today? And I'd pick something out, and that would be what I would wear today. And then I would return it to the bin so it could go get cleaned at the end of the day, put my sweats back on and go home and repeat it all the next day.
That sounds like a dream job to.
It really was. It was a great experience. I the people that I worked with, really, like the staff that we had, are some of the greatest people that I've ever met. I'm talking about the sweetest individuals. I still am in contact with a lot of them today. Um, my the person that I consider my mentors from was I met at Rent the Runway.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was a great time in my life. It was great to be young in the city. I was newly married, and it was a good time. We had a really good time.
So you had everything, it sounds like to me, going for you. You were in a job that was fun. What about opportunities for career advancement? Did you see any hindrance, any obstacles around that?
And that's really where my love for that particular position started to wane, because I always had the idea in my mind, or the goal in my mind, that I was going to go from here to the corporate office. And I really wanted to be on the styling team. So the team that styled the photo shoots and, got hands-on experience on pulling things, and just having that, being able to be creative on a day-to-day basis. In my position, I was definitely able to be creative. I was styling customers that were going to ballets and balls and weddings, and I got to style somebody who was going to the Tonys and the Oscars, and I got really great experiences. One of my really good friends is a stylist right now, and I met her there, and she loved my eye. I loved her eye, and we connected, and it was great. But my goal was always to be in that corporate space. And I found that the people who were moving up to that corporate space and were getting these opportunities, they never looked like me. They may have had less experience in the industry as me, but they may have had that degree. But for the most part, I didn't see the gap as far as an education thing. It was really a aesthetics thing.
Yeah,
Nobody looked like me
yeah,
in corporate.
yeah.
Nobody was a black girl. Nobody was a size 14 black girl. Nobody looked like me. And I tried to use it to my advantage to kind of sell myself as the diversity that they
Right.
needed, the
Some
eye that
uniqueness.
they needed.
Right.
But I wasn't getting the reception. Even with, I knew people who worked in corporate. I knew the CEO by name. Like, literally, she knew who I was. I knew who she was. And I would use that to my advantage. Like, hey, I'm looking to do this. And it was always, yeah, like, send me an email, let me know, blah, 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 blah. And I would do those things. And I would then hear weeks later, oh, this person that I knew got the position. And I was never jealous, because I want everybody to move up. I want everybody to be successful. But it started to feel that it was less merit based, less, oh, she's been with the company for so long. She has the in and out knowledge, from the cleaning to the customer service to styling to the way that the stores were run. I had all that. I
Right.
had I really, at Rent the Runway, started from the bottom. I had the knowledge and the insight from the bottom to the top. And I realized that it wasn't merit based. They were really hiring based on their personal aesthetic. And that bothered me,
Yeah.
along with some other issues that came up. So I decided to take my leave.
So it sounds like the fact that you didn't finish college, I'll say, because you went, initially wasn't a hindrance because you had a great job, you're having a lot of fun. You were picking up a lot of skills. It sounds like you very creative, doing a lot of different things, sort of doing some project management type skills because you had to
Absolutely.
manage situations, put these puzzle pieces together to, drive an outcome. Um, but there came a point in time where there was some frustration. In corporate America, I guess there's two things. There's two hindrances, right? There's the old boy network, right? In terms
Right.
of, maybe in fashion, it was the old girl network. Um,
Yeah.
where it's who it's a certain clique that gets advances, and then a lot of times in corporate America, outside of the fashion industry, it's about, well, what credentials do you have, and so that becomes a hindrance. And so it sounds like there was a point in time where you would come into the realization, yeah, I'm having fun, but I need more. How do I get more? And then when you started, there was a big turning point for you. And I think I'd love for you to tell that story. And I think it was the impetus was COVID, right? And that whole environment around COVID.
Right. So after I left Rent the Runway, I did go to another fashion company, and it was okay. It was fine. I have nothing bad to say about them, but
Mhm.
I didn't get to flex my creativity as much as I would have wanted to. It was to me it was a little boring just for me. Like
Right.
anybody else would have loved it, but for me it was a little boring. But it paid the bills, and I did like the people that I worked with. I loved, the office where it was in the city. It was great. Then um, COVID happened. Well, first I got pregnant. That was the first thing that happened, right? And so I was pregnant all through 2020. I'm sorry, all through 2019. And then my daughter was born February 2020. COVID shut the city down March 2020. So my entire maternity leave and some. We were in the house. My husband worked for the city at the time, so he was still in and out of the house. So we were taking precautions. He took his clothes off at the door. He
Yeah.
didn't even hug or kiss us until he
Wow.
showered, the whole thing. And we were fine. We got through it. But I always told my husband, I said, I will be the best city girl, the best city wife until I get pregnant. And when I
Mhm.
get pregnant, I need to be near my mom. I want to be back in the suburbs because at my heart, I'm a suburban girl. He's from Brooklyn. He loves the city. But I said, when we have a kid, if we have a kid, I want to go back to Jersey to be near my mom
Right.
and my friends that all have children, right? So November of 2020,
Mhm.
November of 2020, we left the city and moved back to Jersey. And everything was fine. It was good. And then late January of 2021, my husband contracted COVID.
Wow.
Um, and at that point, he was going back and forth. So where we live is more like South Jersey. It's more towards Philadelphia. Like we're
Mhm.
close to Philadelphia, but he was going back to Manhattan every day.
That's a big commute.
So it was a crazy commute. And then his mother still lived in Brooklyn. So some days he would just stay at his mom's house instead of coming all the way back. Also, his schedule was crazy. Like he worked 3 to 11:30. It wasn't like it was a regular 9 to 5. So it was just crazy. And he was looking for a new job. But of course, you got to have a job while you're looking, right?
Yep.
So he was going back and forth and he contracted COVID from someone in his department.
Mhm.
So he came home and he looked fine. He was fine. He said, "Hey, I tested negative, but that was like a quick test. They gave me a PCR and I'll have the results in a day or two." And I think it was like Wednesday, they called and said, "Hey, like you're positive." And he was like, "Okay." So we took all the precautions. At the time, my daughter was 1. I went and got tested. I tested positive.
Wow.
So we isolated ourselves from our family. We stayed in the house. My mom would drop groceries off. We were getting food deliveries, the whole night. We took the
Yeah.
precautions that needed to be
And
taken.
that was the thick of it, right? That's pre-vaccine, so that's when it was really bad.
It was right
Yeah.
pre-vaccine. Like I think I want to say, and I could be wrong, I want to say the vaccine became available to like older people around like
Yeah.
April-ish. So
Yeah.
it was right before they released it to the public. So but we were lucky or fortunate in the fact that it wasn't like so early in COVID that they didn't know what they were dealing with.
Right,
It was
exactly.
late enough into COVID that they kind of had a system on how to deal
How to
with it,
treat it, yeah.
how to treat it, right? So we were fortunate in that fact. But my husband's health took a downturn. COVID affected me more so like a bad cold. I had like, the sinus pressure, all that
Mhm.
stuff. But in the midst of that, I'm still taking care of my baby. I'm breastfeeding because the doctor said, keep on breastfeeding her. She'll get the antibodies, all
Wow.
that stuff that's
Yeah.
protecting her.
Yeah.
So he's, like I said, he tested positive. They told us he was positive on Wednesday. By the next Wednesday, a week later, his breathing started to concern me. The cough, he wasn't really he wasn't sleeping, but it was hard to rouse him, So I'll never forget Wednesday night. I told myself, I said, if he does not start to take a turn for the better by tomorrow morning, I'm calling the ambulance. I woke up Thursday morning, looked at him, his lips were blue.
Mm.
So that's when I knew. I was like, okay, no, like you're not dying on my watch. Your
Right.
mama not coming after me. Like, we getting you to the hospital. So the ambulance came and they took his oxygen level, and it was something like 40. Like, it
Mm.
was so low that they were honestly surprised that he was conscious.
Yeah.
Like, he was conscious enough to walk down our flight of stairs, go out the front door. He walked himself to the ambulance, but they took him to the hospital. Within 20 minutes of him leaving my house, I got a phone call from the doctor saying that he was extremely sick, probably the sickest they have in their hospital. They needed to move him to another hospital, and that they were intubating him.
Oh my
All three
God.
of those things within 20 minutes.
Wow.
So they were like, we're going to intubate him. So call him, because we don't know when's the next time you're going to be able to speak to him.
Right.
So I called him and I was like, hey, how are you feeling? They had the nasal cannula, the oxygen. We had FaceTime.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even remember what the conversation was. It was very short, maybe a minute long. And he was like, oh, they're coming in. I'll call you back. And that was it. I didn't speak to him again for 2 weeks. Right. So he was in a medically induced coma, ventilated for 2 weeks. The nurses, I will say, shout out to the nurses at Lady Lords in Camden, New Jersey.
Shout out.
They were amazing. They were fantastic. They kept me updated. I got a phone call from the nurse every day, 3:00 on the dot. She called me. And in the beginning, it was real touch and go. They were like, his lungs are filled. He basically has pneumonia. We don't know. People in his position, we never know what's going to happen. They either rally or they don't. They either come off the vent or they don't.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't come off the ventilators, right?
A lot of people didn't come off the vent. So, I'm keeping it together. I'm still under quarantine because I'm still COVID positive. So I can't
you got a baby.
Be with my family, and I have a 1-year-old, and I'm worried, is she going to get it? She's clueless. She was fine, but
thank God for that.
Thank God, right? And he rallied, but push come shove, he rallied.
Yeah.
He was able to get off. He had a little bit of issues with his kidneys. He was on dialysis for about a week, and then he had to do physical therapy because he was bedbound for 2 weeks, and you have to get your body reactivated.
Yeah.
But right now, you would never know that he had COVID. He doesn't have any residual issues. He doesn't have long COVID. We're really fortunate, really, really fortunate. I prayed every day, and it was touch and go, but he's good. And my daughter never got it. When I took her to the doctor, they tested her and they were like, she never had it. So we were very fortunate. I know a lot of people didn't get to say that. A lot of people lost their loved ones.
Exactly.
So we were very fortunate. But that situation was really my catalyst to kind of be like, okay, I may end up a single mom, not by choice. I may end up a single mom just from the death of a spouse. And can I sustain me and my daughter with just the salary that I'm making now? And the answer was no. So that started things going on in my mind. I'm like, okay, do I go back to school? Do I do something else? And what I landed on was, I always had a passion for, again, something creative, for social media. So I started freelance social media managing for a friend of mine who had an accounting company. And then she put me into contact with some of her clients. And by April, I had 5 or 6 clients. So they were on a monthly, they were paying me monthly to manage their socials. So that supplemented my income until my husband could get back to work, because he was on disability for a little bit. He found a job around September of that year, and we've been good. He works around the corner. It's fantastic. But I was doing that on top of working my 9 to 5 that I was working from home. This past June, I was let go from my 9 to 5 job. So I was on unemployment for a little bit, and then I was also still doing the freelance work. And this is where 110 comes in. Yeah. So I met a girl. We're Jehovah's Witnesses. So we go to, the Kingdom Hall. That's what we call our place of worship.
Yep.
Her and her husband are also Jehovah's Witnesses, and they moved into the area, and me and her just clicked. So we were both talking about what we do for a living. And I was telling her, right now I'm social media managing, but I'm looking for something new. And she goes, oh my God, I'm sending you the information now. I'm part of the 110 program. I'm in. It's fantastic. You would be amazing. I'm sending you everything. And literally, she did. Within a week, I had my screening, and right after that, it was a couple of weeks, but then I found out, what they wanted me to interview for. Then I interviewed, and eventually I landed the job. So, but I know you want to talk a little bit about what 110 is.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So it sounds like, you had this big wake up call, right? So you kind of knew you were hitting the ceiling at your previous job. That was fun.
Yeah,
You went to another job. You're making okay money, but it was a little bit boring. And then your husband gets sick and you're like, oh crap, what if the worst happens? How do I sustain my family? And so
exactly.
that's the big challenge that we're all seeing, is that a lot of the jobs that you get that don't quote unquote require a 4-year degree, it's good supplemental income to a family, but it's not family sustaining.
Exactly.
Right. So dual income with your husband, everything was fine. But if something was to happen to him, then there was a realization that you need to do something different. So, I applaud you on the hustle, right? On the social media piece, right? Of leveraging the skills that you had to supplement your income in different ways. But
I come from a job having family.
there you go.
We one thing about the people in my family, they're gonna get a job, whether it's a self-made one or not. Like we are a job having family.
Yeah, that's great. And so then you come across happenstance, right? So what a lot of times when I talk to people about their journey, a lot of the different roads that they take is because of awareness, right? So if you hadn't met this person, you may not have been made aware of 110.org, which is out there, which eventually ended up changing your trajectory. So I hope you took this young lady out to dinner to thank her for where you are
Yes,
today.
we literally live around the corner from each other. We see each other like almost every day. I do owe her dinner though. You're absolutely right. I've been saying it and we just haven't gotten together, but I owe her a couple of meals.
Yeah, so I came across 110.org over the past year. A lot of the work that I'm doing with Camden Dream Center and understanding internships, apprenticeships, changing how hiring folks look at criteria for hiring. And the whole mission of 110.org is to promote and advance 1 million Black individuals who don't have a 4-year degree into, and this is key, family sustaining careers over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And so you fit right there because they're looking for folks who have the skills, but just don't have the quote unquote credentials.
And it's so crazy because before 110, I would never have classified my skills or the things that I was doing as being transferable for a project management or something like that. But then the more I looked into it, I was like, I've been a project manager for years. Like, whether it's, with the social media, I was spearheading projects at my job. I planned my wedding. That was a project within itself. Being a mother, I'm constantly planning and managing things. So I applaud 110. And that's why I really wanted to do this podcast, because I was like, if I can bring it to the forefront in any sort of way, because again, like you said, my experience with it was happenstance. Had I not met, my friend, I wouldn't have known about it.
Right.
And the fact that I didn't know about it rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is amazing. Yeah. Like, why is no one talking about this?
Yeah, so let's try and amplify this, right? Let's get the message out to those who find themselves in your situation. So tell me a little bit about, how did they help prep you? What was that experience like when you first engaged with them? Tell me a little bit about that.
So with 110, and I can only speak on the 110, situation within Cisco, which is where I work. But I will say they really do take extra care to prep you. So during my screening, and with the recruiter that I spoke to, she was very sweet, very open. It was very much a casual conversation. She looked at my resume said it was great, but told me what things to change,
Mm-hmm.
guided me in that. And then also, as far as interview prep, um, between her and then I have a couple of friends that are in corporate positions. Between the both of them, they really prepped me on what questions to ask, um, how to present your personal life or thing or your skills as transferable into the role that I was interviewing for. Um, I think that was a huge help. And then once I interviewed and once I found out that I got the position, once you're in 110, they provide training from the ground floor up. We went through a Microsoft boot camp. We went through a Smart Sheets boot camp. I did the regular Cisco onboarding and I did a 110 onboarding. They go through culture, the
Mm-hmm.
Cisco culture, how to make your pathway within, Cisco, particularly as a Black person, how to network with other Black people within Cisco and other people in general, not just Black, but
Right.
how to really manifest and get that networking experience and knowing just how to talk to people. Me personally, I kind of already had those skills. I'm a people person. I like to
Right.
talk. Networking has never been an issue for me. But for some of the people that were in my cohort, networking may not have been something that came easy to them. In fact, we had that conversation how networking didn't come easy to some people.
Yeah.
So that training was good. They really set you up for success. If anybody, gets fired or is not successful within 110, it really is a personal problem because
Mm-hmm.
they go out
They
of
give you
their
all the
way
tools you need.
to give you the
Yeah.
tools. It really is about you using the tools.
So it's
They
not
set you up with a full toolbox.
Yeah, so it's not just about matching you. They give you the support so that retention in that position is now possible. And network is important, right? Because when you go into a new organization, especially if you haven't been in a corporate environment, navigating that and understanding that you're not alone, right? As a minority in a corporate environment is important, right?
Yeah, it really is, especially in tech. So I had I was always comfortable in a corporate environment
Mm-hmm.
because my mom is corporate. My mom works for a major pharmaceutical company and she's been there for like 25
Yeah.
years. So, kind of hearing her and talking to my mom and kind of having her tell me how to navigate certain spaces within the corporate environment definitely helped me and prepared me. But I understand that like a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah,
Like a
there may
lot of
be
people's
others who don't
moms,
have that or don't have the
right? And
generational history
so,
of being in corporate, right?
exactly. So, 110 is that support. 110 really provides the training, the how can I put this? The mindset. They give you what your mindset needs to be in order to succeed in this corporate environment. And if you don't already have that mindset, here's how you change it to have that mindset. And here are all the things that you can do within 110 that are going to set you up. So we have continual training. It's not just here's your onboarding, here's some Microsoft training, and you're done. We have continual trainings. I want to say they're like once a month
Yeah.
that whether it's technical training or it's networking or it's how to sell yourself, like your elevator pitch, things of that, like your personal brand, they are constantly teaching us and constantly reminding us that, you got in the door, yes, because of Cisco, but I mean, not because of Cisco, yes, because of 110,
Yeah.
but also your hiring managers are Cisco employees. Cisco in general, as a culture, pride themselves on hiring amazing talent. So you having 110 maybe got your foot in the door, but your talent, your tenacity, your attitude, that is
Keep it
what got
going.
you hired.
Yeah.
So they're constantly pouring into us encouragement because you get a little bit of an imposter syndrome because at least for me, you're coming from a completely different industry
Right.
and you have transferable skills, but you're also saying, are these people going to look at me and look at my credentials and actually see my skills, or are they going to look at me and be like, she's a diversity hire? So
Right. Right.
you have a little bit of that, but they are constantly pouring into us and encouraging us and giving us the tools to connect with mentors and really carve our pathway as to where we want our career to be or how we want it to look in the next 3, 5, 10, 15
Is
years.
there a time limit to the engagement, or is it just ongoing?
So as far as I know, it's one full like fiscal year. Like
Got
for
it.
so the year that you came on, like the month you came on to the that same month the next year, you get this kind of like coaching.
Got
And
it.
then once that year is over, you're sent out into the world.
Right.
Um
You get to fly out the
but
nest.
yeah, you fly out the nest, but they encourage you to um, network as much as possible
Hmm.
within this year. If there are any certifications that you want to get them within this year.
Right.
Ask us, use us. There's a really great open door policy with the recruiters and the mentors there. They are constantly introducing us to people who were either in previous cohorts or people who are Black just in corporate and what their journeys look like, so we can really see ourselves
Right.
in other people.
Right.
So it's a really great program. I can't say too much great about it. Like it's really great, and I'm very thankful.
So you mentioned a story that I guess you had maybe with your manager, and you sort of questioning the skills that she was looking for, and she has some good things to say about why she brought you on. Does that ring a bell?
I think I know what you're talking about. So I within my interview, they were asking me certain questions, and um I got, I went through them. I answered them to the best of my ability, and they really liked what I said. So I was hired. And then when I was talking to her, I was like, what about me really made you hire me? Because I don't really have the technical background.
Right.
And she was like, I literally hired you because you don't have a technical background. She said, because sometimes when you have people who are really techie, really, into technology, they only can speak to other people who are equally as familiar with technology. She said, we needed somebody who was smart enough to learn the technical end, but also creative enough and had the communication skills to be able to take that tech language and translate it into something that the normal Joe Schmo could read. Because
Right.
in my position, I'm really right now working on communication and training. So
Hmm.
tutorials and online manuals, that wording is going to be from me. So that's what they were looking for. So they were looking for somebody who had more of a creative background than a technical background, which honestly made me feel better because it did make me feel like, okay, what I feel are my strengths is what they actually need, and
Right.
they're not just hiring me to hire me.
Right.
So that made me feel good. So, and it made me also want to tell other people, like, listen, you never know what your personal skills or even just something that comes naturally to you will translate to in these corporate environments or in any other industry. So I think it's always worth it um to go for it. I
Hmm.
could have been scared. Oh, Cisco's a huge company. I'm not even going to do it. Like, I know they're not going to hire me. And I had a couple of those moments. Like, Bryanna, who are you kidding?
Sure.
You're a fashion girl. Stick with what you know. TLC. Don't chase them waterfalls. Stick to the
Hmm.
rivers and the lakes that you're used to.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I chased this waterfall. It's been a really good waterfall.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? Because you think about a tech company, and there's a lot of non-tech people who work for tech companies, and that word that you said, translator, is a powerful one, because you need people who are actually not raised in tech, because a lot of our customers, depending on who you're writing for, need someone who has the perspective of where you can break this down to simple terms, and you can do it in
Right.
a creative way that's engaging, right? So what's more engaging than fashion, right? You're catching people's eye, and so you translate
Yeah.
that to language and how you present things. So that's a
Yeah,
powerful
and
thing.
within my other jobs, I felt like I wasn't just styling people. Like at Rent the Runway, I helped create an entire training system for the stylists that were
There you
coming
go.
on.
Yeah.
So I did have experience, writing tutorials and things like
Hmm.
that. Like it's something that came naturally to me. So
That's
the
very
fact that
transferable. Yeah.
yeah, the fact that it was able to now those natural talents get me into a position where, like you said, it's a life changing, life sustaining, family sustaining role.
Right, which I
The
want to talk
salary,
about that a little bit, right?
yeah.
Because I don't want to get into numbers, right? But I want you to tell the story of when you got your offer and your conversation with your husband.
Oh my goodness. So I got my offer. I was home. I went to go pick him up from work, and I was like, babe, I got the offer. And he was like, oh, okay, like, well, what is it? And then when I told him, his eyes almost popped out of his head. He said, oh my God, what? He was like, what do you mean? And I was like, yeah, that's what they said. He was like, oh, okay, well, we're going on vacation and we're doing this and we're doing that. And I was like, yeah, we are, but also chill out.
Right, right, right. We need to
But
save something.
yeah, but it was the first thing we did was, which I was just so thankful because I realized now that like we would never have been able to do this on our dual salary. It was send my daughter to preschool,
Yeah.
to a private preschool. So preschool out here in our community is not free. So some people
Hmm.
have access to free preschools. A lot of people don't. We don't. So my daughter's preschool tuition is only about $200 less than what we were paying for rent in Brooklyn. So
Yeah, it's been 20 years since my son's been in
yeah,
preschool. So it was a
we
lot back
would
then. I can only imagine what it is now.
we would never have been able to send her, and she is thriving. Like I'm
Yeah.
so happy that I've sent her, and we would never have been able to do it. Not out of not wanting to do it,
Right.
but
You just couldn't
we really
afford it.
would never have been able to afford it. Um,
So
and with her,
let's pause there for a second, right?
okay,
Because I think that's important, right? So you get this new gig, you now have family sustainable wealth, which is now impacting your 3-year-old daughter that's setting her up, right? Because she's now going to have a jump from an educational perspective, being in a private preschool, where uh, as a result of that, she may end up being gifted and talented, right? Because she's got that jump. And so that changes not this, the trajectory of Bryanna and her husband, now it changes the potential trajectory of your daughter, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And she was already advanced. You know,
Hmm.
she at 2.5, she'll be 3 in February. At 2.5, she speaks so clearly. She articulates very well. We really didn't send her for, you know, ABCs, one, two, threes,
Right.
colors, shapes, that kind of stuff, because she already knew it. Like we were
Hmm.
teaching her from day one. We sent her mostly for the social aspect of it because she's an only child. I
Yep.
don't plan on having any more children. We're one
Hmm.
and done. And with COVID, she wasn't ever really around children her age. So she's very social. She's not one of those kids who like doesn't like new people. She's very social. But I always said we had to send her because she's overly social. Like if she wants to play with you, she's not getting out of your face unless you play with her. So she needs to be sent to be able to adapt to other people's personalities, to be able to develop the respect for other people. Like, hey, they don't want to play with you right now. Go do something else.
Right.
And she wasn't getting that because the only other kids she was around were her cousins. And like, of course they're gonna play with each other.
Hmm.
So socially it's been amazing for her. I feel like um she's just calmed a little bit because she's actually getting that energy out that she wasn't able to get when we were home.
Yeah.
So it's really been great for her. And again, another thing I can be thankful for this position because it put me in the position where I'm able to send her and I'm not stressed. I'm not like, oh
Right.
God, I have to pay for her tuition. How are we going to buy food or how am I going to pay the car note? Like everything's just kind of taken care of and it's great.
And what's amazing is that you weren't even aware of the potential of increase in salary that you could have.
No, I think we had this conversation. What I thought they were going to offer me still was like double what I was making, right? That's what
Yeah.
I thought they were going to offer me. And then what the offer ended up being was more than that. So I almost fell out my chair. Like
Yeah.
I once the meeting was, I kept my composure till the meeting was over. The offer meeting was over. And then once I closed my
You
laptop,
kept the
I
poker
literally
face in the
screamed.
meeting, right?
Yeah, of course, like these are recruiters that I had, you know, a relationship with over the last
Yeah.
like couple
Yeah.
weeks, so they could tell how excited I was. Like
Uh-huh.
I didn't really need to hide it, but you know, the professional in me was like,
Right.
no, like wait till you get off, and then you
Right.
then you can scream.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Of of 110 and organizations like that is to look at people differently, value the skills that you have, and give you the opportunity to work in jobs that compensate you appropriately, right?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this the other day. When I was in fashion, especially working for Rent the Runway and a couple of other organizations, I was always in the proximity of these women who were making really good money.
Yeah.
And either they had their own business or they were lawyers and doctors and all these other type in tech or whatever. I was always in their proximity. And I always was like, one day I'm going to be in the position where I can walk into Yves Saint Laurent and just be like, I want that bag. And they hand it to me and I hand them my card and I walk out the door.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I want to be, because at the heart of me, I'm a fashion girl. But what I realized is that fashion doesn't pay you enough to actually buy the things that
Which
you're
is
surrounded by
crazy, right?
being in fashion,
You're
right?
teased every
So
day.
on an off chance you might catch a sample sale or they might give you an employee discount, but you're really not making the money to be able to buy the things that you're surrounded by.
Yeah.
Now I can.
Yeah.
Now I can walk into Gucci, I can walk into Yves Saint Laurent and be like, I want that, and hand them my card and I can get it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a life-changing feeling. It really, really is.
Yeah. Sense of empowerment. So how long have you been at Cisco as of this recording?
I just hit my 30. No, it's more than 30 days. I started in October, the end of October.
Wow. So it's about 2
So
months.
yeah, about 2 months. Yeah, like 60 days. Yeah,
Wow.
almost.
So how's it been?
It's been amazing. I absolutely love my team. My hiring manager is amazing. I can tell that her and the director, they really see something in me and they really want me to succeed. Any sort of extra resources I've asked for have been handed to me without hesitation. Again, we're still getting trainings from 110, so I'm doing that. And what I really love about Cisco, I think my favorite thing about Cisco is the employee resource organizations,
Yeah.
which, we have the Connected Black Professionals.
Mhm.
There's one for Asian Americans. There's one for Indian. Like there's so many different organizations you can join to kind of find your people, whatever your people may be,
Right.
and then also to become an ally to people that you may not have had interactions with in the past. So I think that part of Cisco's culture is really my favorite, and being able to be a part of the Connected Black Professionals and learning and seeing Black men and women who have been with the company for 15, 20 years and what their trajectories look like, and I'm seeing where I could be
Right.
in the next
Potential.
decade.
Yeah.
It's really encouraging. It's really empowering.
That's fantastic. So any last words before we wrap up?
I listen, if anybody who's listening to this, look up 110. They're not only just associated with Cisco, there's a bunch of Fortune 500 companies that they are associated with. Like, join. I think it's free to join. Go over your resume, they'll help you. I got through obviously Cisco, but there's so many opportunities, and I just hope that this podcast sheds some more light on it, and people can really see that there are opportunities for us out there who may not have had the normal 4-year college experience.
Yep, it's 110.org. It's ONETEN.org. So you can go to that website, and there's a lot of information there. So that's the story of Bryanna Morris. What I'm learning from all these inspiring stories is that none of these journeys are traveled alone. There's a lot of support along the way. Bryanna had her grandfather saying education is the key. That's important. You had your friend who told you about 110.org. You had COVID that kind of, I guess, woke up the family that, maybe we need to consider how we fortify our support from a financial perspective. And so you've obviously demonstrated the persistence and tenacity of wanting to succeed. So I certainly admire that. Thanks so much for sharing your story, Bryanna. I have a feeling this one's is going to help some other folks who are out there.
I really hope so. Thank you so much for having me. This was an amazing experience.
So thanks everybody out there for listening. I hope you were able to get something out of this conversation that can use in your life or inspire you to help someone else in theirs. So if you like what you heard, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who you think might benefit. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks again, Bryanna.
You're welcome.